So in this video, I'm going to review a couple of the questions from Game 2 from PrepTest 51. So Game 2, PrepTest 51. All right. So this one is a game where we're ranking hotel suites. Here are hotel suites, and we're ranking them from most expensive to least expensive. Okay. So the most expensive is going to be on the left and the least expensive is going to be on the right. We have 6 total. There are no ties. Okay, so because we have no ties and because all of these suites are going to be ranked, that means we have a 1-to-1 ratio of players to positions. We have 6 players, 6 positions. We're going to use each player exactly once. Okay, great. Okay, so rule 1. H is more expensive than L, so I'm going to put H to the left of L. Rule 2, if G is more expensive than H, then, right, and I reserve my arrow for the word then in conditional statements. You'll notice I actually don't use an arrow when I'm just talking about relative position. I did use an arrow here, right, to show that from right to left we're actually increasing in expensiveness. But you'll see in my rule drawing that this arrow is reserved for the word then. All right, so if we know that G is more expensive than H, we also know that K and L are less expensive than J. Okay, so it's worded a bit differently in that rule, so check out the way that rule is worded. If you maybe struggle with that a little bit. Okay, so if G is more expensive than H, then neither K nor L is more expensive than J, which means J has to be more expensive than both of them because we don't have any ties. All right, so usually I would create a contrapositive here for a conditional rule, but I actually noticed that rule 3 starts with the negation of rule 2. So these two scenarios together will cover every possible scenario in the game because there's no possibility that H and G are tied. So either G will be more expensive than H or H will be more expensive than G. We don't have any other options. So really this is just going to allow us to create 2 potential worlds. So if H is more expensive than G, then neither J nor L is more expensive than K, which means K is more expensive than J and L. Okay, so we have 2 options, right? G is more expensive than H, then this is true, or H is more expensive than G, in which case this is true. Our 4th rule, F is more expensive than G, or else F is more expensive than H, but not both. Okay, so not this scenario. So this would be both, right? That F is more expensive than both G and H. But we know that it's not this scenario. So if F is more expensive than G, that must mean that F cannot be more expensive than H. So H must be more expensive than F in that scenario. And in this scenario where F is more expensive than H, F can't also be more expensive than G. So G is more expensive than F in that scenario. So we either have HFG or GFH. Now, other players could potentially jump in between here, right? But F is always going to be between H and G in general, right? So, for example, we could have H, L, F, G, right? So F doesn't have to be directly between H and G, but it has to have H on one side of it and G on the other side of it. Generally, H is to the left of it somewhere and G is to the right of it somewhere. That should be allowed. And I chose L because we just know that L has to be somewhere after H. So that's conceivable that that could actually work. Now, if H is more expensive than G, K also has to be more expensive than L. So maybe K is here and J has to be less expensive than K. Maybe J is there. Looks like that would follow all the rules, right? So H is more expensive than L. If G is more expensive than H, we have to follow this consequence, but G is not more expensive than H in this scenario, so we can ignore rule 2. And we have to follow rule 3, right? Because H is more expensive than G. So K has to be more expensive than J and L. So K is more expensive than L and more expensive than J. So that one works, right? And HFG, H is more expensive than F. F is more expensive than G. Awesome. So this is one acceptable scenario. Okay. Great. So that's just sort of an intro to game 2 from PrepTest 51. I'll continue with those specific questions in a later video, but hopefully that helps to clear up any issues that you might be having with the game as a whole.